these traps that T1 have set so successfully, KT needs to avoid.
Absolutely. Well, guys, we are ready to jump into game number 1 draft, as we do have Sejuani taken away. Actually, it was pretty cool to see, you know, the second they clicked in, Zeus was already typing out Sejuani, and I saw him click it, so that was kind of a peek behind the curtain.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool, as already we are targeting Cuz. And this is a guy that didn't make it onto any all-pro team, but I think he kind of got robbed a little bit. This guy has really had a huge return to form, his best form, and he's been really consistent at that top level.
We'll also see aiming Zeri banned away. I think that this is leaning towards my thought process as well for KT, is just trying to get to the late game without too many deficits, which is kind of the opposite of how KT have played a lot of the season, almost like a budget version of T1, getting ahead in lanes. Lehens is roaming, you've got those duo kills, and you're making plays around the map and snowballing early. They will not allow aiming to play this Zeri once again, as Oner will first pick the Elise.
Oh boy.
Okay, this is a little bit more rare these days, but you know, you don't have the Varus, you don't have the Caitlyn, the Sejuani and Vi are gone. And even with Lee Sin available here for Oner, they want to have a little bit more control of the bottom lane, and this allows T1 to now wait and counterpick the 2v2 based on what KT show here, so they can have bottom side prio with this Elise pick, making the 3v3 very difficult to play out for KT.
That's going to be interesting to see what they counter with. Aphelios coming through, and Lens doesn't have to pick his support here. Probably wants to pick jungle first and then save it for counter pick, or maybe even look for a pick for BDD. But the Wukong will come in. Definitely not a jungle champ that has as much early presence as Elise, as Lucian.
Not surprised by this. Yeah, the other option you could have considered here would have been a Draven lane, but when you have the Elise here and you are the best 2v2 lane in the LCK, you're not worried about what Aphelios is paired with. You're not worried about whether it's a Thresh, a Lulu, maybe even a Tahm Kench. Lulu's so incredibly strong with Wukong that it's going to give Aphelios a little bit more oomph in these team fights, some extra survivability for what is going to be a pick-based composition here initially for T1. So it's going to be all about how much KT can stave off the pressure, but we already know in these first 6 lock-ins that bottom side is T1 favored. This opens up top side for Keen if he wants to actually play around that instead, and T1 should be well aware of it.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned it, because playing around solo lanes and playing around Keen has been part of KT's win conditions the entire season. And note that KT selected red side against Live Sandbox. They were the only team to select red side first, even with side selection. So they're a team that are actually like, okay, you want to take blue, that's normally, you know, the stronger side, whatever. We can find ways to try to counter these solo lanes, as that looks like maybe a Kassadin look. I mean,
well, we've seen a lot of Tristana bans recently, even overseas in the LPL. It's so strong right now to snowball games, especially, you know, if you walk face up into this, as we have seen in the past. A Gwen being hovered here. Now, they did ban the Jace away, and this is a way to get a strong amount of magic damage, but they'll take the Renekton. I was going to say, expecting a Cassante pick, you have to imagine. But it will be the Renekton instead, and they can save counter pick here for BDD.
Yeah, they denied away from Zeus, just in case T1 wanted to play Renekton and Elise, but instead they'll just get Zeus' Gnar. It's extreme comfort, and it is one of his best champions. So, might get the same in that facet for Faker here.
Okay, we're seeing the Flex Cassante here with the Elise. Chovy showcased this earlier on in the season. And this becomes a little bit tough to play out now for KT Rolster, as it might have just been BDD thinking he's playing Lissandra into the LeBlanc here and looking for some of those late game setups here and laning well against the LeBlanc, having obviously the engage tools here with the Renekton and the LeBlanc. But now I think, yeah, you could just play this Veigar, and this is something that was mentioned on the space. BDD has been so good on Veigar. He played it very late compared to the other mid laners, but his performance has arguably been the best here in the LCK. And, you know, a lot of times we look at Veigar and we're like, okay, this pick seems like a trap, it seems like it's overrated, doesn't seem that good, but when BDD plays it, he gets lane prio. He's now playing into a Cassante, so he's going to have a huge edge here. And now Cuz has a lot of agency around the middle and top of the map, because bottom side is kind of a wash. You will probably have to protect aiming and Lehens in the early levels, especially at level 3, where Elise is going to come over, start taking your jungle camps away. But after that, Cuz has a lot of agency through mid and top here, because it is a Cassante, it is a Gnar into this Renekton. But what I'm most concerned about for KT is that this composition can snowball so well, and they have Zeus on Gnar into Renekton, a matchup he has crushed in the past. Doesn't matter who it is, doesn't matter if it's Keen. I mean, it's just so comfortable on this Gnar versus Renekton matchup.
Yeah, it just feels like relatively safe solos for T1, and then they have the really strong 3 champions to really just get the snowball rolling down on the bottom side of the map. So kind of what you were saying before we even saw the draft, Wolf, is that KT really need to play patient. You know, they're more of the scaling type compared to T1, who are fantastic at snowballing, and we have seen they have been the best so far in 2023 at doing that. So can KT stop the snowball here in Game 1? I feel like will be one of our sub-stories for this game.
No doubt, because I mean, the two compositions do very different things. It's not to say that T1's composition can't fight well in the late game, but their magic damage is going to be essentially just this Elise on the jungle. Everything else is about setting up picks here, getting the solution ahead, setting up fights with Zeus. On the side of KT, they have single target Elim set up. They have great late game scaling.
Yeah, it's going to be a really fun game to start us off on this best of 5. Let's hop onto the Rift right now. So cool to be backcasting a telecom war in the playoffs with you, Wolf. We have done this more than once.
Yeah.
Maybe not in League of Legends, but in the past. And this was always such a fun matchup, not because of the history, but also because in times past, these usually were the biggest 2 fan bases, right? So even though in nowadays, T1 is known as the biggest one, KT still has a huge fan base in their own right. And they have come out in a lot of fiery emotion already to start us off with some of those cheers.
No doubt. You know, in StarCraft, I think KT Rolster was able to hold on to some of their players for such a long time. Players like Flash, for example, have such a legacy. And in League of Legends, it's been T1 who's been able to do the same with Faker. And we've seen KT's roster, you know, recycled over multiple years. Score finally getting his title, but then of course had to retire. He's back now as a coach. But you look at the KT roster here, and you're like, well, BD's back, right? He was with this roster in a less fortunate time for KT. He's back now and is a huge, crucial part of this. And it's just the difference here, I think, in how T1 has been able to just be dominant so long, whereas KT started off pretty aggressively. This is going to be a 75th pick.
Yeah. I don't know the exact number of champions that are released at this moment in time, but I believe it is over 150. But he's getting close to the halfway mark of playing half of the champions in the game in a professional match in the LCK.
Yeah, consider at one point in time, usually about a third or about a fourth to a third of champions are relevant in any given meta. So just showcases how long he's played and how many different styles of play he's played through. As here comes that level 3 Elise. This is about as standard as it gets. The Hens here doesn't have level 2 just yet, trying to get a few of these minions very close to it. And this is going to get very difficult for Cuz to defend this blue buff. He's even just going to let it go.
Yeah. And this is what we talked about. I mean, the Wukong himself doesn't really have a lot of power this early on, especially in this matchup. So you might just have to give up a lot. For now, you know, they haven't given up the blue. Of course, Oner's going to stick around, but Faker's getting mid-prow, and he's roaming over.
Yeah, BDD actually not here at all. Can start to head this way, but it'll be very difficult to actually wrestle away control. And I love the first strike here for the Elise when you know you have this bottom side prio. We've seen a lot of PTA to actually get additional damage done and actually have better single target. But in exchanges like this where you know KT are going to have to come over, you're just getting more and more gold. You're just harassing with your spiderlings and just picking up money while you're also delaying your opponent's experience. So knows that Cuz is 9 CS down right now, is down about half a level here. And every time Oner hits these spiderlings, he's getting more and more money, just using the level 3 timing here to get so many small advantages. And ultimately, we'll still pick up the blue buff.
Yeah, I mean, Oner, he knows what this Elise does so well in the early game, and he's not going to back away. It's pretty refreshing to see, you know, even in this game 1, just that some of these players, they understand like what their win condition is, and they're really playing around it really strongly. That's something that T1 do really well. Whereas it feels like a lot of our other teams so far have kind of been nervous to, you know, push the envelope even when it feels like that's their win condition.
Yeah. You get a heal here out of Keria. Small advantage. But here comes the Elise once again. This time there is no Wukong nearby as Oner wants to set something up. Again, worst case scenario, probably just push them out of the experience range.
It's level 4, so Lehens is like, well, I don't really want to fight this guy. And there are 2 wards that spotted him coming over, and there's really not much they can do because, of course, Cuz on the Wukong, again, you know, he's on the other side of the map just trying to survive and farm something.
This is T1's MO, man. They just 4-man dive bottom lanes when they have Prya, and when they have the best bottom duo in the game and they're playing Lucian Nami, you are just going to be able to deny a lot of farm. Now, I like that KT do not panic here. They are just going to back away. A lot of experience will be lost. But there's nothing really you can do about this. Giving over kills, losing that gold would be huge.
Flash on in, teleport used as well. Oner has to flash out of this one as they, well, they were being patient until they weren't. They found a little angle and tried to go for it. Didn't really work out for them.
Yeah, we'll be able to get Oner's flash here, but it is going to be a TP and flash in exchange. And this does allow aiming to get back to lane here and just fall behind only by the 10 CS here. BDD might drop a plate here because of this wave, and the demolish looks like Faker should be able to force this. Just going to kind of kite back here. Not quite going to secure it, but we'll be able to get it with the next wave. And this is a play that KT made to try to wrestle back some modicum of control, like some small amount of control here on the bottom lane. Like, and this is what this draft for T1 affords you. Now, this is about as good as it gets, but it is exactly what this draft is designed to do. This is not, oh man, KT's dropping the ball. Speaking of...
Faker's getting in there already as the cage will be put down. Faker just skirts around it. There's another knock-up potentially, but no. Faker's getting very aggressive here in the mid lane. BDD's MO is just sit here, farm tier, and try not to die, so... He did that pretty well, though. He's like, okay, cool story. Cassante, I will just continue farming.
Yeah, interesting. Hold up. See if Cuz gets seen here. Just on the edge of vision. Might be able to try to force something here. Get a flash or a cleanse. Grab him. This is the timing you're trying to find here as a Wukong who doesn't have 6. You have to use the laner's CC to set up for your damage.
He's not spotted. So he's just going to go back to farming here. He's only about, you know, a camp and a half behind the Elise now, but even able to get this Rift Scuttler, not bad. Going to smite that one away. Could just go back to the top side, farm out his red buff jungle, and try to hit level 6 as fast as possible. But guess what? He's just going to sit in the bottom side and continue to try to help out his bottom lane.
Yeah. And this is going to be first right gold. Like I was saying, coming over to Oner. Going to stop a back here. Nice warrior trickster here from Cuz to avoid the damage, at least. The vast majority of it. And the scaling here for KT is fantastic. So, you know, you look at the game and you see a 1,000 gold lead here at 7 minutes. It's not a situation where you're like, okay, well, this is T1. They're going to win this game for free. But it is a 30 CS lead that is mounted here on the bottom side. Aiming is trying to rush back down here with his Noon Quiver in tow. So these advantages are big. It is going to be a Drake going over. And KT Rolster just do not want to give more than what the lane prio is going to provide. Not going to take any bad fights here, not going to try to force anything. And I think that as painful as it is to watch as a KT fan, watching T1 take everything on the map, I think this is the right play.
Yeah, Faker getting poked out here. We actually did have the ultimate used by BDD. Just trying to push him away. It's not like Faker had to flash or anything. That's part of the reason why you do select this. Maybe expecting BDD to pick the Veigar, and he's like, well, I could just get through the cage some ways, and, you know, I can set up him very tanky. I'm just going to sit in the lane and farm it out and look for team fights later.
BDD is going to get a pretty significant CS advantage here from this wave that's crashing into the mid turret. Faker had to back, took a lot of damage, and he can get through the cage, but he's going to take a big hit. Now, I wanted to point this out earlier before we had Cuz going to the bottom side, but Faker is building plated steel caps here early into this matchup. Not something we normally see. It is kind of essential for Cassante to be able to fight against Renekton and the Wukong in the front line. And it's much stronger, obviously, against both of these champions with the recent patch and the recent changes to the steel caps versus Wukong. But doesn't mean that the Veigar cages get a little bit tougher to deal with if you cannot actually dash through them.
Yeah, absolutely. As well, we do have Faker making his way down to the bottom side here, and it looks like aiming currently level 5 alongside of Lehens. They know this is coming, and yes, they haven't died yet, but still, I mean, 3 plates are gone at 9 minutes. And once again, the snowball continues. Note that Guma did go for the Dirk, which is pretty common, especially if you're trying to snowball in the early laning stage.
And going back to the draft, like, I think a lot of people would look at that draft and the bans we saw as targeted for Cuz, but actually, these are targeted for champions that can compete with Elise pre-level 6. And so now you have this Wukong pick that can't really do anything, can't engage until level 6 is ready. And you're just like, yeah, I am Elise. Nobody can contest me. Nobody can fight me.
Yeah, well, he's going to hit that Q, but he is being charged down here. Can't get over the wall, so he will be safe. But yeah, it's just a scary moment there. Should be totally fine.
But notice the second Valdez that Cuz gets 6, the attention is shifted topside, where they have had Cryo in the top lane, so even though the Herald has been up for a little while here, T1 know that KT can't take it. And they're like, oh yeah, Wukong has engaged opportunities now, but we're actually, with so much cryo here in the faster group up, going to be able to take this instantly. And yeah, Aiming can go back to lane for free, and he's going to have some pressure relief, but we've already done the damage there. When Wukong can only just kind of show up and watch defensively. So we're winning top side. Mid is going fine. Bottom side, we're massively winning. We got both early objectives here, talking about the objective stats that we saw earlier, T1 getting both a lot of the time with these prio lanes. It's another scenario where that's just the case here.
Well, we're watching Zeus just continue to put on that pressure in the top side, and I don't think that's going to stop anytime soon, unless Cuz does want to visit the higher focus top side. As Cuz is currently down here in the bottom side. Looks like Keria, you know, he's staring at that brush. Maybe understanding that, okay, we don't have much vision. Cuz just hit level 6. He's level 7 now. Got to be careful about some of these Wukong ganks.
Yeah, I mean, they have Tidal Wave here. Both players with Flash. It's very difficult to actually make this happen successfully. They identify, okay, let's go clear that ward and push this Wukong away if he's in the vicinity, which he is. And they're going to be able to get back control of this bottom side.
Culling. Aiming down to 20% health, just like that.
Just for, I mean, these are things you could do just for tempo. And they will, and they did. And now Keria's like, if they stay here, I tidal wave them, and they die. And if they don't stay here, they lose more farm, and we get more plate gold. This is, by the way, without Herald being dropped. They do not need to drop Herald here necessarily.
Oner is going to face check in here. The polymorph, very annoying for him, as he will have to flash over the wall. So nice little win to the side of the KT bottom lane, but another plate is going to go into the hands of Guma and Keria.
They should be able to get the whole thing, not necessarily off of this wave, but look at all the damage being done here. It's first strike on this Lucian, so every time he's just chunking away, picking off more of these health bars, and now that this wave has showed up here, I'm going to probably try to force this one in. And Wukong is still in the vicinity, but they have a lot of ward coverage here. And actually, Faker's coming over just to kind of make sure it's okay, because he has all that mid-prio. And the Drake is spawning in 12 seconds. And with Oner losing Flash, he's just backing off. He's going to use this Drake in mid to try to help get this early mid-turret, as well as Drake prio to take a 2-Drake lead.
Yeah, that Rift Herald could be big, as meanwhile, speaking of big, Aiming has to flash, but I think he's 100% dead. They wait in the brush, and they hide on bush. That's all you got to do. Aiming had no idea. And that is a pretty free first blood, and should be first turret given over to Guma.
First turret with all 5 plates. And we'll get the solo plate here for the final one. 625, that's going to be the second Drake. And again, Herald can just be dropped here mid. 2 plates have already gone down. So BDD in a lot of trouble. And if this turret goes down, after already losing bottom side turret here, you're going to have big problems defending against this Elise, who's now pretty accelerated in this game. And she's going to be able to just roam around. And I'd say accelerate, not in items, but just in map control. Like, she's going to be able to constantly threaten.
Okay, we got the Lehens gank coming up to the top side, as waiting for a good moment, as that will be the flash away from Zeus. And it's not every day you see the level 7 Lulu gank, but Lehens, there's not much else that he can do at this point. So actually pretty nice that he gets up there and burns Zeus' flash.
BDD doing his best to prevent this turret from going down. The charge will still come through, but he's able to stop the wave, delay the charge. And that turret will not fall this early, luckily for them. And yeah, Zeus losing his flash here. Just going to give Keen a little bit more agency in the lane. It's not really about the lane right now, unfortunately. As you watch this play once again, no vision here. Aiming is just hoping that he's going to be able to get away with some additional farm down here, but this is just straight up greed. And these are the types of mistakes you cannot make against T1. They have the wave straight in the middle. And if you don't have vision there, you can't walk up like that if you have no idea. Just had the impression that they backed and that he was going to be able to get some additional gold. 1,400 here is 8 plates across the map.
This is something that T1 does. It's like, okay, well, we have these win conditions. Maybe if we can hold on. And it's a big if. As, okay, maybe trying to find a little angle here up on the top side. That's that Lulu and Wukong play together as in goes the Cyclone onto 2 of them. Guma has to flash away, so they finally find an angle. Cuz coming through the river, T1 did not have vision here in this river, and they got totally caught off guard.
And Cuz has definitely identified that, you know, Oner is on this Elise, a very squishy champion, even with Repel. There's an angle there. If you actually catch her and blow her up, you're going to have some great follow-up here potentially for objective fights. This one, just a skirmish on the top side of the map. So they're trying to get some gold here to BDD. They will end up taking out the Elise. They're trading back a kill here. Not too significant at this moment in time, but it could become significant as BDD has now picked up his first kill of the game and is scaling up. As T1, they are still about 4,000 gold ahead at this point in time, as Oner is very aggressively up here trying to control this vision with the ward. And like you said, the synergy between Wild Growth here and the Cyclone for the Wukong just allows you those additional knockups. He plays it very well, Cuz does. Gets a little bit greedy with the flash here. Great bubble from Keria. Without that, perhaps you get an additional kill there, or at least Keria's summoner. But his bubble is great, so they will escape there. So flash use there from Cuz, unfortunately not going to lead to anything else.
Yeah, you saw that Zeus on the bottom side of the map, he was trying to steal away a bunch of the enemy jungle. And little things like that are also ways to continue with the snowball, but actually Cuz got over there and took the blue buff down, so that was pretty nice. Obviously not able to give that to BD or anything like that. He's on the top side of the map, so pretty good to take that away from Zeus that just wanted that extra gold. As meanwhile, T1, they want, with this early lead, to take a second Rift Herald and really push this forward. As I'm not sure if you mentioned it, Wolf, but we actually do have Chemtech Soul on.
No, we didn't talk about it in Tidal Wave. Gonna go wide.
Okay, that was interesting.
Well, they want to guarantee.
Back.
Yeah, they want to
get the turret.
Exactly. They want to guarantee this turret, and they like to use the Herald top so they can get all 3 outers. And if you actually catch somebody there, you get mid without using the Herald. They didn't, so the turret will live, but they're gonna just drop it here top side, and then we'll be able to get their second turret of the game here. BDD has Cuz.
Oh man, he's caught on the edge there as waiting for that TP. KT's got an angle here. Faker on the run. He does have flash, and he is quite tanky, as Keen really wants to force this one. Faker just on the dash. Still has not flashed, as he will all about him over the wall just to escape. Still has his flash, as he is under here, and Oner getting over the wall with the cocoon, and they turn this around. 2v4, you gotta be kidding me.
These are the fights. These are the fights. I said KT cannot force, or T1 will just turn them every single time. Faker using the geometry of the map. Now, meanwhile, they get the turret
Look
mid.
at this.
Yeah, they get the turret mid because they were looking for this anyways.
TP bot?
TP bottom, and they're actually going to turn this into a 2-turret play here after defending the topside turret. Mind you, the Rift Herald was not used, so it's still available here to use wherever they like. And this is a double inner play here they're looking for right now. Mid-inner goes down, so 2 turrets here. Could be 3 if they actually commit the Herald there on the bottom side. 30 seconds to go until the Drake comes over. And man, T1 a masterclass of macro here. And it was so close there on the top side, but you're committing a TP.
It looks so good for KT. They're like, oh man, we got the flank. I think the TP was like a 1.5 seconds late. Like if he was right on that, maybe get something going. Cuz now he's just dead. There's just nowhere to go. I mean, he doesn't have flash. Used it in a couple of fights ago.
And you have no map vision really as KT here. You know, you're trying to set up control wards defensively in your own jungle. You lost an inner. So just, like you say, nowhere to go, nowhere to hide.
Look at this.
Faker he just turns.
라인 높여. 나 궁으로 사실
Says he has no full, no flash rather, and no ult. But he is just gonna ult through the wall.
얘 무리한다.
And he's like, they overextended. And he just calls it out. He's like, they overextended. And
페이드 안 해도 돼, 안 해도 돼.
it's just the fans going crazy because once again
확인하게.
T1 makes this happen, and all the while Guma's pushing that mid turret.
And he's calling the entire time like he's not really getting, you know, overwhelmed by the fact that he's getting flanked by 4 people, right? That was a 2v4 they were running. And Faker's like, yeah, I don't have to flash. I'm just going to ult him over the wall. Like, he's calling it as this is happening. And he's able to turn what looked like a very unfortunate position into a winning play. And the T1 effect is then to just get mid turret and also half of bot turret.
And these are the moments where teams haven't realized that Faker has planned this 2 steps ahead. And they're getting all these turrets across the map while Faker is turning this around with all out. And it's like one of those moments where you realize Faker wants to play Cassante because he's like, no, I can actually survive for so long with this champion when they collapse on me.
It's just a great champion for, I mean, for everyone basically, but Faker obviously playing it very well. Nowadays, everybody's really prioritizing this, and I feel like he's like, well, this has a good matchup into what BDD plays, and it's going to be fantastic once we hit the mid game, and that it has been.
And now we're looking at a game state that is pretty doomed, because we're talking about some of the scaling aspects of KT's comp and how they need to survive, they need to not take these poor fights, but it's not about the kills for T1, it's about what they got on the map while KT committed that. All of that turret gold going over is worth more than the kills that T1 could have in this game if they were just constantly fighting. But they're just winning the map because that vision means that KT can't farm, for example. Notice Aphelios is now 60 CS behind. Where does he farm? Where does he get minions? He waits for Guma to give him the minions. Like, He's like, please, Guma, send them to me. Guma's like, I'll send some of them. And he has to farm like under inhibitor turret, so KT just have no control.
Because that's not your jungle anymore. He did smite the big raptor.
True.
I'll give him that.
And like,
yeah, it's just a total cutoff of vision and control.
Exactly, because now
your own jungle.
If you can't farm, you can't scale. You need money to scale.
Okay, little angle here onto the Elise as, well, the rest of T1 is there as the very long-range tidal wave comes in and forces a flash at a BDD.
And as KT, you just have to force these awkward fights now. You have to do the fights I suggested not to do at this point because you can't get minions. You know, look at the bounties. 3 turrets for the taking here for KT. If they win 1 team fight, all that bounty gold will go over, but they have to win the fight first. It's just not looking likely. As you can see, Guma with rapid fire cannon.
He's got basically 3 items. It's like 2 items and 2 components, but they're big components. So he is really chunking people now. And T1 are actually going to back off of this one. It's not every day you see that from them. They say, you know, okay, we can get this, we can turn, but actually, you know, Guma got in an awkward spot, he had to flash away. They're like, no, we don't take this just yet.
Cuz has flash, and even though he took a ton of damage there, Flash Warrior Trickster with Smite, it makes this a potential 50-50. And like we were talking about, if you somehow end up overextending here and losing 2 players and losing Baron, and then KT get all that standing bounty gold on the map, the cost is just too great. T1 lose literally nothing except a little bit of time in this game by just saying, we'll walk away. There's no loss here, right? And you can see the money coming through here for Guma to build that 3rd item. And here it comes. Bam, IE at 22.5 minutes. As, I mean, if he got Baron, he would have had the money there. He's like, okay, I'll just go get Raptors. It's cool. It's cool. Just back off.
Yeah, and, you know, we've said in metas past, in patches past, I should say, here in 2023 that, you know, Lucian, he got tapped a little bit early on, but he's always been decent as long as you can pressure in early to mid and you can get the snowball going. He's still going to be strong when it comes to mid to late. Maybe not a hyper carry in the sense of like an Aphelios or Zeri, but Guma in this position, just because he's so far ahead, he has so much potential to put on pressure, to look for burst kills. He's almost like a pick champion at this point.
Yeah.
As disguised as an 80 carry, so he's going to be looking for so many angles onto anyone that steps out of line, even more so than anyone else on this team.
I think the big nerfs to Lucian made it so that if you were just a decent Lucian player who was going to win lane, you're not winning as hard. But if you're an amazing Lucian player and you have an amazing team who can empower your Lucian play in the mid game, that's the kind of ways that Lucian is still going to be strong. And I know a lot of people are probably watching this game feeling like, well, Cuz didn't do anything, Oner outplayed him, and the game is over. But again, remember, Wukong can't do anything pre-6, really. against this Elise.
Yeah.
They played around bottom side prio. Faker got mid prio, which I wasn't sure if it was going to happen. I didn't think it was going to happen, but he got mid prio, so he had a lot of control there. And then Zeus, we knew this is like his favorite matchup to play. He's going to space it, as you can see here, so incredibly well. So, I mean, this game just snowballs. Doesn't matter about, oh, do they have magic damage? It's only a Night Harvester on the Elise. Does it matter? No, not when you have this big of a lead.
Chemtech Soul here, just picked up 24 minutes in. It is also an Elder Spawner as Cuz... Did he smite away the red? At this point, maybe it doesn't matter too much, but kind of funny that that's the spot we're in. Maybe it was going to leash back, maybe they thought T1 was right there, but either way, it does mean that aiming doesn't get it.
But, you know...
Potential poke.
Yeah, the potential poke you mentioned is significant, but at the end of the day, I don't think they can even come near this Baron.
T1 can just start it up. You know, they do have a lot of control in the enemy jungle. They can see Cuz, as that ward is not denied by the control ward, actually. Keria takes a massive chunk, though, has to use heal.
Okay, this is the angle, maybe. Tidal Wave not great either.
They're not able to zone out Cuz, though. He's still got flash. Still got a way in. He's over the wall. The damage comes in, and they get it! KT take the Baron away! And now they're looking for the fight afterwards. The Cyclone, though, doesn't get much value, as T1 really want to get in there and punish for this, as Zeus not able to get a big Gnar, might be able to take down 2 members of KT, and even Keria will survive. And it is 5 versus 3 in favor of T1, but that Baron is pretty huge for KT. They gotta hold on from here.
It looked like Faker thought the Blast Cone was gonna be enough to actually zone Cuz away, but he doesn't actually hit Cuz with that, and they don't focus the Baron quickly enough, so Cuz is able to come in like we were talking about with that flash. Almost the exact same scenario we were talking about on the previous Baron attempt from T1, but ultimately it may not matter here because T1 end up getting 2 kills here on the solo laners, and aiming, he just got his second item. He's been 2 items down this whole time. He's not really going to be able to carry this on his own, and this should be an inhibitor minimum for T1.
It is still a 10,000 gold lead, so T1 even against Baron minions not really caring because KT can't step up to defend those Baron minions at this point, and they have the damage to peel through them.
And now with the push on all these lanes here for T1, they've prepped top and mid, they've got the inhibitor, only bottom is fairly exposed here, but you don't have teleport to rush down and grab it. Like if Keen wanted to play this one out here, you'd lose a lot of control on the map, and Keen would probably just be collapsed on us. Let's go back to this moment here. Faker's in, Blast Cone is eliminated, and then I think he's just thinking, all right, I'm gonna zone them away, but they don't have any angle here onto Cuz, so this ends up being straight up a 50-50. And then Cuz is able to survive here, and they want to turn this into a 5v5 fight, but they don't have great engage. They don't have the turn they're looking for. Cuz couldn't actually turn around with the Cyclone. There's just too much damage. If this was an even game state, Cuz just goes back in. Maybe they win the fight with the Felios ult, but it wasn't going to happen this time.
It is a breath of fresh air for KT. I'm not saying that they're in a position now to make a big comeback, but it would be the first step towards getting to that position. It is only a Chemtech Soul, so, you know, not a great one. It's still 10,000 gold to lead, but now KT are getting some more items on some of their scaling champions. And if they can hold on for dear life,
it is pretty good for Cassante too. I mean, he's got a Gargoyle Stone Plate with some of that additional shielding. And Anathemas is picked up here.
True. It's just not the best, you know.
Yeah, it's very difficult to kill him. And if he goes below 50% health, he's going to be even harder to kill, and he's going to do more damage. It's just so frustrating. He's got Jack shows, so... You notice that Faker was so willing with the lead he had to 1v5 in that fight, and if he could have zoned Cuz out, it would have been totally different. They wouldn't have been able to even go for the smite contest. But they can't get close, even with Baron buff, to any of these bounties on these turrets. KT's still just defending in their base right now.
Baron buff about to go. 5 seconds, and down it goes. Zeus in the face of 5 people is just chipping away at a turret. As the super minions being very annoying in this mid lane. Can provide that, you know, a little bit of extra farm for some of those scaling champs, but yeah, I think T1 are just trying to put on the pressure, really trying to choke out this blue buff side of the KT jungle because, of course, we do have Elder in a minute and a half, so they want to prepare for that.
Yeah, aiming here, just trying to push Zeus out. And as you mentioned, the Elder coming up. And there's not a whole lot that you could really criticize KT for. Maybe that top side player where they committed the teleport and Faker baited them into a bad exchange. Like, we could be somewhat critical of that play, but it's really just masterclass from Faker once again. I think we have to go back to the drawing board here in the draft as KT Rolster, because you gave T1 an amazing tempo-based comp. While it seems in some ways outdated with Lucian, Nami, and the Elise, it feels like a week 1, week 2 LCK draft that we saw from D+. Faker has his own flair to it, right?
They brought back a golden oldie from the early weeks of this season.
And it feels in some ways outdated, but when you could play it this well, and T1 have been practicing this for so long this season, even before the season began, you know they're going to play it well. You know they're going to snowball. And, you know, maybe a blue side look here for KT in Game 2 might be the way to go. Is it's not over till the Elder is dead. Maybe KT can win this miraculously in a 5v5. No death cap for BD, just doesn't have the money, and they have to fight anyways.
Do they have the damage to peel through somebody? The Chemtech Soul you mentioned might actually help in this facet. But if you can get a Cage and like a Renekton follow-up, maybe you can get something going. But the culling is already in. The tidal wave right on top of BDD. And Guma just frontlining, forces the dominance before the fight even really begins. As everybody on the side of KT just running away, we do have a Cage to keep them alive against the Gnar. But this Elder should be T1's.
T1 grouping over here, and I mean, if KT don't fight this, they lose the game, but if they fight it, they will not win it. Faker again, 1v5, he's like, I'm gonna lock this down. He's level 16, he's got Anathemas locked, and he just locked it. On to aiming, he's like, nope, aiming, you can't do damage to me.
And he really doesn't, and he's just there, he immediately hits Cuz, he's like, you're not getting in there, like, that's never gonna happen. So, Elder Drake taken here by T1.
And we're gonna cower in fear in the base. And there is a flank potential for Cuz. He's like getting red buff right now. I thought maybe he's gonna wrap around. He has flash ult, but who do you even kill if you get the ult off? It's Elder buff, and KT are thinking about Game 2.
Yeah, just gotta wait. Just gotta cower, as you mentioned, as the poke is already in.
Trying to clear minions.
And yeah, that is the way. We do have a nice little flank here. Inhibitor comes up. Tower, though, is going away. Tidal Wave is going to be big, but does part the team as Cuz still waiting.
You have to kill Guma twice, by the way, if you kill him. You have to kill him twice. And they're respecting the Cuz flank. They're like, I know he's back there. We don't know exactly where. And wow, KT will live a little bit longer here, and the Baron take time will eliminate some of this Elder clock, though there will be a period of time where they have what we like to call Exodia, where you have both critical late game buffs at the same time. Well, the overlap won't be huge here because they do defend. And if KT take time to, or rather, if T1 take time to reset here, some of that time will actually further be eliminated. I don't think they will. They're just going to straight push top, make sure they have 3 inhibs to end the game. But KT just hanging on by a thread. TP here for the reset. BDD has death cap now.
Aiming is looking for his LDR, but he, you know, he's not going to have Infinity Edge for a very long time. So you've got the entire team of T1 breathing down your neck in the top lane, and you don't even have that LDR yet. So now with one Nexus turret and a Dream, KT are hanging on for dear life. Poke already does begin. Cage catches the Gnar.
Cuz once again searching, hunting.
Boy. Here we go. That's going to be the end of Keen, and that should be the end of this game. The culling comes in onto BDD, and yeah, that's the end of Aphelios as well. Everybody is just scattering to the wind as Lahens is just emoting, and T1 will not let them get away for free. Takes them all down and takes down